Welcome to our episode of Biblical Archaeology from the Ground Down. Sponsored by Bible Interact and hosted by Dr. George Sparks. Now let's explore the field of archaeology in today's episode.
Welcome, everybody, to our podcast today. I got a special guest, Dr. Mark Wilson. This is Biblical Archaeology from the Ground Down, sponsored by Bible Interact. If we do show some artifacts here, they're on loan for the Museum of Archaeology and Biblical History located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Doctor, I'm going to give a little bit about your academic backgrounds and what you're doing all the way from Turkey today.
Yes.
Dr. Mark Wilson is an American scholar who has lived in Turkey since 2004. He is the founder and the director of two organizations, the Seven Churches Network and the Asia Minor Research Center, Antalya. Their purpose is to promote and the study of early Judaism and Christianity in Asia Minor with the context of the Greco-Roman world. Dr. Wilson regularly leads study tours to the biblical sites in Turkey and other countries in the Eastern Mediterranean. He has also conducted several seminars for the Turkish tour guides on the Turkish biblical heritage. Dr. Wilson is an author and editor of over a dozen books, including 4 studies on the book of Revelation. He has also authored many articles on Jews and Christians in Asia Minor. These are available at academia.edu.ed. Doctor, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Glad to be with you today.
Yes, good. And Mark and I are old friends from way back, many years at Asia Minor Studies and the Evangelical Theological Society, I think. And then we both did our PhD on Revelation, I believe. And
we did, and we certainly share those common interests.
Yes. So it's always been good to catch up. So looking forward to seeing you again and your visit today, Mark. George, you have some questions? Good.
Well, First of all, I thought Doctor, you'd give our listening audience a little bit about your background and what got you interested in archaeology and geography in the region of Turkey.
Yeah, I've always been interested in history, and after becoming a Christian in my adult years, began studying the Bible, and especially was attracted to the book of Revelation, the journeys of Paul. And I'd never been out of the United States, and in the preparation for my own doctoral study in Revelation, I went with a small church group to Turkey in 1992. And I guess because my first trip outside the United States, it had a major impact on me. And we visited the 7 churches on that trip, and Ephesus particularly, and came back, and I again began my own doctoral studies based on some of the things I saw there, especially material culture and archaeology that I was exposed to, and soon found myself leading tours over here and bringing student groups along the way. And then I had the opportunity to study in Israel in 1997. And I went over for the historical geography program that the JUC was doing, Jerusalem University College, and did their Jordan extension. And I was really struck by their approach to the study of the land, the geography there. But as you well know, Israel is saturated with institutes and research centers. And my experience in Turkey, there was nothing like it. And so sort of the seed was dropped into my mind, well, maybe I should be the one to do something like this in Turkey. And so kind of the rest is history.
Great.
Well, that is pretty fascinating that you decided to take on that endeavor. And since you was in Israel and you're speaking English, did you have to learn several languages before you proceeded to live in Turkey?
Well, they speak Turkish over here, and as a typical monolingual American, trying to learn one of the most difficult languages later in life has been a challenge. Many English speakers here, of course, and I know enough Turkish to get around, but I was teaching New Testament at Oral Roberts for 4 years and resigned from that. And then we came over for an extended period in 2001 to just see if my wife would be amenable to making the move over here. We were empty nesters at this point, so we're able to have the discretion to move abroad. And in 2004, we ended up moving to Izmir, to Smyrna, one of the 7 churches where we lived for 6 years. We were in Istanbul for almost a year, and then since 2011, we're here in Antalya, which is Biblical Archaeology, where Paul and Barnabas sailed from at the end of the first journey.
Great.
Since you briefly mentioned your wife, me and David, she was also listed, but it was spelled Dindi. Is that right?
D-I-N-D-Y. It's a very unusual nickname. It's Cindy with a D. So we have a very interesting cross-cultural
Okay.
marriage. I'm from a small town in New York. Excuse me, I'm a small town in North Dakota. She's from a Jewish background in Manhattan in New York City, and we met in Colorado. So we're still working that out a little bit.
Because before the podcast, even yesterday, I tried to go over some of the words. Like I got to try to figure out how to pronounce these right.
Yeah, we
one
remind sometimes the old TV show Mork and Mindy, and we say Mork and Dindy. So,
oh, there you go. Because I plugged in your wife's name to see if it was, like is it a Turkish name or where's it? And even with AI, it just kicked me around different things. So I thought, like, I'll just have to, with the introduction, I kind of like removed it. Sorry. And then I said, I got to ask you that question because it gave me so many different answers on even AI. There we go.
Of course,
Go
you've
ahead,
written
David.
works on commentaries and Revelation, and I see you've republished a few of William Ramsey's works, as I have as well. I've got a couple that I've republished of his, and certainly worthwhile. A little story behind that is my supervisor, Hard Marshall, back when I started my PhD, my second year, he says you should take and change your dissertation to defending local references by William Ramsey. And I said, wow, I'm just too far into my research to jump ship now and change my focus. But I did do, some of that in my commentary on the 7 churches. But you've got a number, and I've got a couple here. This is one that that you've written on the illustrative background, the Zondervan series, and then of course the one that my go-to all the time is the Biblical Turkey. And when I want to double check something or see what's new, I see you've got it revised.
Yes. So as I began to lead tours over here, I found the resources for people were not available or as comprehensive as I liked, and I began developing my notes. And during the time we lived in Istanbul, I found a publisher there that does a lot of archaeology publications and history in Turkey. And I decided that I wanted to have it published here so it's available for travelers, but also in the gift shops, at the various archaeological sites. And this has given me the ability to make changes every time we go to a printing, because the archaeological discoveries are happening, regularly. And so I'm able to incorporate those changes, update in a way that I wouldn't have had if it was published in the United States.
Right. So why does the historical context in Asia Minor still challenge contemporary faith communities today? I mean, as you had mentioned, there's not a lot of research that's being done in Asia Minor by Christians. They also want to focus on Israel, as you had mentioned, and can testify to that as well. But much of the New Testament was actually focused on Turkey or Asia Minor and Antalya there. So how can that contribute to our understanding today of our understanding of the biblical text?
Well, I mean, modern Turkey, sometimes used as Asia Minor or Anatolia, has more biblical sites than any other country after Israel. So, and especially related to the New Testament. We have sites, of course, in Eastern Turkey related to Noah, Ararat, the Ark, Abraham down in Haran. Particularly the Hittite centers at Hattusha, but especially for the early church. And then early church history, we're extremely rich with all of that here. And so I think for Western Christians, there's been kind of a vacuum of understanding how important Turkey is. We're a Muslim country here, 99.9% Muslim. So that's part of it. But looking at those maps at the back of the Bible, making the connection between Asia Minor and the modern country, I think a lot of Americans, especially who are geographically challenged anyway, fail to make the connection and see Turkey as having much of a place in New Testament history.
Right. And of course, with the cultural context, Imperial Cult, and pagan temples, and Jewish synagogues, and lots of good stuff from an archaeological perspective. How do these things really change and influence you in your development of Christian theology and practice in the place of maybe, say, Pergamum or Ephesus? And, you and I are not so much theologians, we're more archaeologists and historians, but it certainly impacts our theology. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
so what lessons can we really draw from this interfaith dialogue with the cultural context?
Yeah. I think a lot of Christians are very surprised to learn there's more Jews living outside of Eretz Israel in the first century than there. I mean, there's more Jews in Alexandria than in Jerusalem.
Right.
And so, I mean, this population in the diaspora, it's estimated maybe have 800,000 or a million Jews living in Asia Minor. Maybe a quarter of the Jewish population that was around in the first century. So, when you look especially in Acts chapter 2 on the day of Pentecost, we've got 5 regions and provinces in Asia Minor that are listed there. Their Jews are there for the feast. So this is really the spread of Jewish communities around Anatolia at this time is really a foundation for the coming of the gospel, because whenever Paul goes into a city, if there's a synagogue, he begins his ministry there. We have the largest synagogue in the diaspora at Sardis, one of the 7 churches.
Yep.
So the Americans who have been working in there for decades have recently covered that synagogue to help preserve some of the beautiful mosaic floors that are there. We have another synagogue that's been discovered at Myra Andriake, Myra. And that wall is near an ancient granary that was built by Trajan. So that's there. And then we have one at Priene. And one of the joys that I've had living in Turkey these years, I was able to participate in the excavation of the synagogue in Priene and co-author the publication of that from 2009 to 2011. So that has been very important for me of understanding that context as we think about then the rise of the early church.
Now, the one in Priene would date a little bit later than the first century, would it not?
All of our synagogues and actual Jewish realia here is late 3rd to 5th century. So we have nothing earlier really that's datable. Of course, we're in a high earthquake zone here. So, certainly these communities existed. We know from textual evidence and whatnot in earlier centuries, but archaeologically, it's just difficult to specifically identify things from that period.
Yeah. I excavated a Roman bath complex in Jordan, and there was earthquake damage there, probably from... we think it took out the city about 746 AD, the earthquake then. So, yeah, the ancient ruins were certainly prone to earthquake and the damage. So maybe the one that we have earlier would be the earliest one, maybe in Ostia. That's in Italy. So be one of the earlier ones.
We have a lot of evidence around in places with menorahs, and that's just a very common way that we can distinguish something that's Jewish, for example, in the massive necropolis at Hierapolis there, thousands of tombs there. And we have some, again, with menorahs, with then the etrog, the shofar, and the lulav on them. And so even though the names listed there are simply Roman or Greek names, we know they're Jewish by the symbols that are on the tomb.
Yep. And we have that menorah that's in the on the step in Miletus as well. I think there's one there.
That one is on the Ephesus step at Library of Celsus.
Yeah,
but
there's
we
one
do
there
have
too.
the famous God-fearers inscription in the theater at Miletus. That's the one I think you're thinking of.
Yeah, you are correct.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
That's the advantage of visiting these sites on a regular basis. You keep it fresh in your mind. We can't we can't talk about Revelation, of course, without talking about the Imperial Cult and
Yes.
the importance of archaeology and historical context there. So perhaps you could elucidate the audience a little bit on that importance in our reading of the book of Revelation.
Certainly. In the Greek East, when we talk about this area from Greece eastward, where people are speaking Greek as the common language, okay? And so in this area, then they began to worship from Alexander on living rulers as divine beings. And so this continued with various Seleucid kings, the successors of Alexandria. And then, of course, after Octavian defeats Antony and Cleopatra in Actium in 31 BC. Now he emerges as the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. He's the Caesar Augustus that Luke makes reference to, you know. And the Pax Romana period begins. And so it's quite inevitable then that those living in the Greek East, you know, who had opposed Octavian, but now he's shown mercy and grace to them by not punishing them, take away their free city status. They began to acclaim him as a living God. And so we see the assembly of the province of Asia, which is about what western third of Turkey is today, a petition to build the first Imperial Cult temple in Pergamum, and that was constructed in 29 BC. A sister temple of that was constructed in the capital of Bithynia at Nicomedia as well. So these were the first two Imperial Cult temples where Caesar was worshipped as a divine being. And then in the first century, we have two more that are constructed, one for Tiberius in Smyrna in 25, and then the temple for the Flavians, Vespasian, and Titus, and especially by Domitian there in Ephesus in the late 70s, early 80s.
Great. George, did you have any further questions?
Well, yeah, for the listening audience, you said words like the Pax Romanus, referring to the Roman peace. That's what you're stating on that.
Yeah.
What was the statement? It used to say, peace for Rome meant quiet for the provinces. That's the Pax Romanus. Number one, I got a question. Let's see. You documented Paul's first missionary journey extensively with the 2025 excavation in Lystra, uncovering what appears to be the city's main early church structure linked to Paul's stoning and healing miracle in Act 14. How does this discovery enhance the understanding of early Christianity, the communities there, and the role that was spread throughout the Gospels?
Yeah, so I was just in Lystra a couple of weeks ago to meet with the lead archaeologist there, and he gave myself and my colleagues really a wonderful tour showing what they're working. His area really is an art historian working in Byzantine history, so his excavations are focused largely on the church, but he's developed some hypotheses related where the city gate was, related to of course, the incident we read in Acts, where a crippled man is healed, and of course, Paul and Silas are acclaimed as the gods come down to earth. You know, so the churches that we see there are very typical of suddenly in late 4th, early 5th century, these basilica-style churches being built now as Christianity, persecution is over. They've got the church dating from about that period with a very typical basilica style with a main nave with two aisles on each side. And he's thinking it's perhaps dedicated to St. Paul. My own idea is that maybe it's Timothy, because he's, of course, from Lystra there. And of course, we know about his background, his father being a Gentile, his mother and grandmother Jewish. So it's really significant, I think, to see a church in this very place where Timothy is from.
Oh, very good. What are some of the other new excavations being carried out in Turkey today? I understand that there's a few new ones. Colossae just got started again, I hear, and
Yeah.
anticipation on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Near East Archaeology Society has had an interest in Colossae for many, many years. I was going back with some proposals to the Turkish government, and it's very difficult to get for foreigners to work as excavators here in Turkey. We have some historic excavations that the Germans, the Austrians, and the Americans have been doing, but to do anything new is basically impossible. And so Colossae have just kind of been in the shadows because the Italians have been working in Hierapolis for decades. And then we have the new excavation in Laodicea. And for over 2 decades now, the archaeology department at the local university there, Pamukkale University, has been doing a 12-month-a-year excavation. I mean, this is a new thing happening in Turkey where it's 20 or so excavations. They're not just a season in the summertime, they're working 12 months out of the year. And
Wow.
usually that's because there's a local university nearby, so they have students and the professors nearby, so they have access to the site.
And I
And
see they're
so
doing,
there's, go
yeah,
ahead.
I see they're doing a lot of restoration there as well, and
Yep.
construction that is quite impressive.
Yeah, they totally restored at Laodicea, the West Theater there, and they're using it now for local concerts and events there.
Mm.
But with so much of an emphasis on Laodicea, with a huge investment in infrastructure and everything there, Colossae was just kind of the stepchild over there. And with the perception, because there was just a barren hill, a tell, or the Turkish word huyuk there wasn't much to see.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years ago, Professor Barış Yener from Pamukkale has worked extensively at Laodicea, got a permit to start doing survey work, and lo and behold, he began to see that there were things there that would warrant an excavation. And so he sent in his application for a permit and was granted that this year. And so there was just tremendous excitement about the first year of excavation at Colossae this year.
Mm. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit of what they have found thus far, because this is only the first season they've dug at Colossae. What's
Yeah.
come up so far?
I was up there a couple of weeks ago, and again, there's some issues right now about excavating the tell itself related to some private ownership of some of the property there that they're working that out. So they began an extensive rock cut necropolis to the north. They excavated 60 tombs. They found a few remains. A lot of them had been looted already. They found a lovely lamp there's a couple specimens in the University Museum, Missouri Museum, as well as in the Getty Museum, with a ship on the oil lamp. So it's just a lovely artifact in pristine condition. They found some coins that are of quite interest, and these are just now being reported in the news here in Turkey. As well as a number of personal belongings, of course, that would be related and buried with a person in these rock cut tombs. So they're very satisfied with what they found here just in this first season.
Mm. Would the oil lamp be Roman, perhaps?
Yes, definitely Roman period,
Okay.
probably late first, second century. I mean, that's what Getty is dedicated or identifying their lamps or dating them to that.
Oh, great, great. Yeah, I love my oil lamps.
Yeah, but of course, working in excavations many years, just all the practical details of infrastructure. So the team there has put together, built an excavation house, and all this takes a lot of money. So my organization, the Asia Minor Research Center, has been a place where people in the United States can donate money for the excavation, and so to help support this because it's a limited funds come from the Turkish ministry for this. They've got to build a storage depot, of course, for the artifacts that are found, and a place, of course, for their students to work in examining pottery and doing the various photography and recording and all of that. And
Yep.
so they build a big fence around the site now too. So these are just a lot of the practical things as well as the archaeology that have been put in place during this year. So it's been very successful on all of those fronts.
Yeah. I remember when I was there back in 2004, it was a big poppy field on top. So I don't know if
Yeah,
the
you
little
can walk
farmers.
around and yeah, there's shards everywhere. Farmers were plowing it, and
Yeah, so it's good to see it finally being excavated. They got a theater, you can still see it, the indentations there of it, I think on the north side, if I remember, but it'll be great to get Colossae excavated a little more
yeah.
and
Yeah, we're planning for working with Tutku Educational Travel, which is another sponsor along with Asia Minor Research Center for the excavation there. bringing the lead archaeologist to one of the upcoming meetings of Near East Archaeology Society, ETS, Evangelical Theological Society, as well as the Society of Biblical Literature. So that may happen in Denver then in 2026. So.
Okay, it's in Denver
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, as you know, it's just complicated now for foreign scholars to get visas to come to the United States. So that is a complicating factor. So hopefully that Barsh will be able to come.
Do you have any further tours sort of planned and upcoming that our audience might be interested in to hook
Well,
up?
sure, I have a seven churches tour happening in March. So anyone is welcome to join that tour. Group will begin in Istanbul for a day tour and then come down and start here in Antalya. We'll touch a little bit of Pauline sites as well as seeing each of the seven churches. So it'll be about a 7-day tour. And please, you could go to the Tutku Educational Travel website and see the itinerary. That's spelled Tutku, Tutku. So.
Right. I'll put links in the bio here for the podcast when it goes out. George, did you have any other further questions or inquiries? And
All right. You know what? Ephesus is central to Paul's 3-year ministry in Acts 19. And one of the seven churches continues to yield fascinating finds, including 2024, 2025 remnant of Roman era shops, storage facilities with amphora, and gladiator tomb. How do these discoveries illustrate Ephesus as a trade hub in that time?
Well, Ephesus is, of course, the fourth largest city in the Roman Empire in Paul's day. It was the western terminus of the great southern highway that came all the way from Antioch through Tarsus, up through Iconium, Pisidian Antioch, Laodicea, and then ended in Ephesus. So all this cross Anatolian traffic all ended there. And then it was from a sea perspective. Traveling from Rome and its port of Puteoli, this is where you would disembark. So when the governor is sent out from Rome to take charge of his province there in Asia at Ephesus, he would land there. And so you have this tremendous commercial emporium here in Ephesus. So it's not only a mercantile center, but you have a great religious center. So with the Temple of Artemis there, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, and pilgrims coming from all over the Aegean, Mediterranean region to worship there at the annual Artemisia festivals. Then just up the road, you have one of the three major Apollo temples at Claros. And we know, for example, pilgrims came from, or I should say, inquirers came from Laodicea because they left their inscriptions at the temple there to inquire of Apollo to get direction for their cities when plagues and other natural catastrophes happen. So you've got the religious, you got the business center there, making it really a significant center for Paul to land and to base his ministry there for almost 3 years.
given the geography of today, when we look at a map, we see that Ephesus is really inland. Why? Maybe you can explain the conundrum there with regards to the harbor at Ephesus and why we can't trust our modern maps.
Yeah, that's a situation not only with Ephesus, but we have four major rivers. So the western coast of Turkey is very different than where I live. We're surrounded by the Taurus Mountains here in the plain of Pamphylia. But there are east-west mountain ranges with rivers in between, and the southern one is the Meander, and that's silted up Miletus, even more than Ephesus. And that used to be a large gulf in antiquity. And then as you come north, the small meander or Cayster River is silted up that whole area around Ephesus. The Hermus River a little bit north, the whole area around Smyrna and the harbor there. And then finally you get up around Pergamum, the Caicus River with its port of Alia is all silted up. So this has been a major issue with all of these cities coming on from the ancient world. Part of that is motivated by too much overcutting of forests. to run these Roman bathhouses that you have in all of these, you needed fuel. And so they would cut the forest down, make charcoal, and keep the bathhouses going. But of course, that's going to promote the silting that takes place into these rivers.
Right, right. So you can't really trust your modern maps to sort of do the geography of the biblical text. So you have to be careful there, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
Let me
at
ask you,
all, because
okay.
some of my articles that I've written are focused on that, particularly to help Bible students understand that, for example, when the Ephesian elders come down to meet Paul at Miletus, they're not walking on dry land. They've got to come across the entrance to the Gulf there on a ferry in some way, and of course that's going to impede the time factor for travel related to Paul and his journey there.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
right.
you're both talking about, let's say, the inland being silted up from the past 2,000 years. So for our listening audience, like how much of it has been silted up? What would be the difference from then till now?
Yeah, well, around Miletus, of course, where Paul meets the Ephesian elders there, that is a vast landscape that's been silted up now. They're going inland for some 25 miles. Now it's all cotton fields growing there. And similarly, with Ephesus too, you're about 6 miles away from the sea today compared to what it was in antiquity. And
Right.
again, that's all filled up. So, it's this fairly fertile farmland now, but in the ancient world, when you go to Ephesus, you see kind of the shape of the inland harbor there. But by the Middle Byzantine period, 600s, ships simply couldn't even come up to the port anymore because the progradation or the silting has continued.
Yeah. I understand that in the first century they tried to do a little bit of dredging in that harbor to keep it open, and
Yeah.
debate goes on as to whether it was open or not. But you could walk right from the theater down Arcadian Way right to the harbor. But today
Yeah.
it's a big silted in field. So
Yeah, so in the springtime when the rains are there, you can see the reeds and the outline of the harbor with the water standing in it. But
yeah,
by summertime, it all dries up. But that's where it was.
yeah. So geography is different. That's
Yeah, for
any other
sure.
questions, George?
Yeah, vastly different. Well, since you're talking about, you mentioned, David, real brief, the road going down. Is there an upper city and a lower city?
Where?
Yes, yeah, yes. Ephesus is yeah.
So,
Ephesus is quite unique as it sits between kind of two small mountains, and they cited it in there. And you have an upper city where you have a what's called the civic agora. So, or we sometimes translate that as marketplace, but this is misleading here because this is the area where official government business would be transacted. This would be where the courts would be held. And this is nearby was the Imperial Cult temple built for the Flavians and Domitian there. There was a sanctuary for Divus Julius and Dea Roma in that area, the Bulletarian where the representative council met. And then the main street of the Curites descended down into the lower city toward the harbor. And of course, the iconic building there at the bottom of the street is the so-called Library of Celsus, who is the governor of the province of Asia at the end of the Apostle John's life, at the end of the first century. And then the theater and then the big commercial agora is down there. And this is the area where Paul, working with Priscilla and Aquila and others, would have done his tent making skill when, for at least a season when he was working in Ephesus.
And there's also the silversmith inscription down there, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting because it's mentioned in Acts, which I always
Right.
found fascinating.
Yeah, and you can see the proximity then of this commercial agora where Paul would have been at, but also the silversmiths, and then the riot breaks out and spills over to the theater, which is right next door. So,
Yeah. Well, I would recommend your tours to all of those listening. I remember when I was there a number of years ago that one of the local guides was explaining I was overhearing her explain that the Boulevard, the little small, looks like a theater, the upper part of the city, that was where the riots broke out, and that's where Paul was. I said, no, that was down the large theater down below. But You want to get good information, and so I do highly recommend your tours to our listening audience, and
Yeah.
they want to get some good information.
Yeah, and I want to reassure people we're kind of in the neighborhood where it's perceived to be a little bit dangerous, but it's very safe over here for traveling. So don't be afraid of coming over here. And the experience will be is, and I kind of describe it, the Bible reading goes from being a 2D reading to a 3D. So you begin to envision, the geography, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the places where our early church would have traveled along these ways. And you begin to read between the lines and put together, what John and Luke and Paul are saying there. And then and as you well know, having traveled in Israel extensively and other countries, it just adds so much to your understanding and ability to interpret the scriptures.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, it's been really great catching up and seeing what's being discovered now. And I wish I was there in some ways, but you can see it firsthand. So pleasure to have you on the program today and sharing with our audience. And
Yeah.
George, did you have any other further questions, or did you want to take us out?
Well, you know what? That's very, very fascinating what you're talking about because I'm in my imagination, I'm thinking about the locations that you're talking about and how that would be an influence where you said the silversmiths and how one would connect to the other. That would be a fantastic trip to go there. And, when we read the Bible, we use our imagination and to take a trip, but actually remove the imagination into the reality of the event. And I think that would be fascinating because just listening to you and your excitement about,
Yeah.
what you're doing there in Turkey, I think is fantastic. And we'd love to have you back on the program. Let me ask you something. Do you actually do any filming on location, you and your organizations?
I do it with other groups. I've filmed with the History Channel. I've got a friend, Stuart Bennett, who has made several films. We just did one recently on Barnabas and Paul. I was just in Greece filming with Appian Media folks who are doing something on Paul's travels. But a couple of years ago, we did a video on the seven churches with Appian. These are downloadable from their website free of charge, as well as our other videos I did with Vision Video and Stuart Bennett, who is the director. So, yeah, that's one of the fun things I get to do occasionally is to go out with friends who are making films and to be a consultant on these kind of projects.
Yeah, great. George, did you have a Roman lamp there somewhere you could show
Do
our
I have
audience?
a Roman lamp? Geez. You know, let me see if I can grab. Let me turn this off real quick. We'll edit it and I'll go look for a second.
I'll
Okay.
cut it out there
Give me
anyway,
a little
George.
second.
Put it at the end. It'll be good to have
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
Okay.
as a sample just to show. We always have a few show and tells on the program that
Yeah, for
audience
sure.
really seem to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few things around the office I don't want to show them though on here because you have to be an official collector to have these things, and so
Yes. Yeah.
you of course you can't take them out of the country here, but a lot of people have picked things up at sites and just have them in their own homes and offices.
Yeah.
In Turks, they've got stones in their backyards and
That's
in
right.
their walls and things like that. You've probably seen it when you've traveled here.
Well,
All
George
right.
does all the paperwork for his, so we're good. And
A
Good.
Roman lamp.
Wow, look at
And
that.
this, yeah, it's bronze. Of course, a horse's head for the handle.
Yeah.
And this would be actually positioned on a table. You can see by the ring base. Some could be on lampstands and some can be hung by chains, but there's no evidence that that was done with this particular style. So this
Wow.
actually was seated on a table. What do you think? Nice lamp, huh?
Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, one of our issues in Turkey is so many of anything with metal was melted down. So I mean, anything of bronze and whatnot, it doesn't survive. And where we typically find these are in shipwrecks.
yeah,
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So there you go. A Roman lamp.
tombs that
But
haven't been
but to think
looted.
about the This would actually have to be like the lost wax technique. They'd have to make a mold, then they would, or it was first done in wax, and then they make a mold, and then they would shoot the metal in to take the place of the wax that was melted away.
Yeah.
But this is pretty extensive work for
Yeah,
living.
it's a lovely specimen. I mean, they're truly artists in doing this kind of thing.
So
it would have been a chain under the chin of the horse's head
yeah,
there.
yeah, you're right. You got me there. Yeah.
Yep, look at that, sure.
Yep, it would have been connected to the for a lid.
And then the Roman period Herodian lamp.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but anyway, you see the difference. Hey, but this one, because we call them Herodian from the Herod period, not that Herod and his grandkids were making lamps. But it's very plain because it represents, in a way, the law of no graven images. So in an observant Jewish home, we just see these plain lamps. So that's usually what is being excavated. So one good indication if you're in a Jewish vicinity versus a Gentile is one would be very plain if they're observant, and if they're not, then they don't care, right?
Yeah, one of the few Jewish things that has been found in Ephesus is actually an oil lamp like that with a menorah on it.
That would be cool.
It's in the Ephesus Museum in Vienna. You know, that I've saw it displayed there, but again, it's very few Jewish things have ever been found in Ephesus, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So yeah, but do you ever find like, okay, a synagogue, but now they have images, items in the vicinity of the synagogue. So in other words, they're not as observant of certain traditions. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, this idea that somehow there's more syncretism in diaspora synagogues or Jewish practices, it's really not borne out in the evidence. I mean, we find them as being Sabbath worshipers, keeping the law of Moses. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going to have some people who are more secular or more accommodating to the prevailing culture. But the Jewish communities held on to their they circumcised, of course, the scriptures, the Jewish scriptures were still their book. They would gather together in a community. And so, I mean, I don't see any evidence of sort of a watering down of Jewishness here in Asia Minor in antiquity at all.
What about the perhaps the eagles on the altar in Sardis in the synagogue there? Would that be an indication of the syncretism, or?
Some of that was just the recycled materials. They, cut off of the some of the things on there. I mean, they use images of lions there as well as table posts. But you also see that in the church in Laodicea. They've excavated. So they're a bit pragmatic, and I don't think we're viewing these as some sort of idolatrous thing, but just a little bit of decoration to add to their worship areas.
Okay, and then of course there's the zodiac and the mosaic floor in some of the synagogue. I think it was what the
we don't have that in Anatolia though.
No, that's right. It's more in Israel, but.
Yeah, just down the road here at Cedar, a couple of years ago, they've been excavating a whole large area there, and I found a beautiful mosaic synagogue floor. Again, that we can identify by the inscription in there and the menorah that this was a Jewish sacred space. So, they're out there, and archaeologists will continue to find these, as they excavate here.
Yeah, I love my mosaics, and always good, especially the one they found recently in the Megiddo prison that
for sure.
Speaking of the deity of Christ. So anyway, never
Let me ask
know
one more
what we're
question.
gonna find.
In the epistles, we see contention between, let's say, the ministry of Paul in the Jewish communities and within the Gentile communities, right? The stoning and chasing them away.
Yeah.
But the ruins that you're talking about in your location, you said are dating centuries after, like 3rd, 4th century, around there. Is that
Sure.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any indication by the 3rd, 4th century that you might have, let's say up in the Agora where they're buying and selling, that you would have shops that were run by those of the Jewish faith? And in it, there are representations of the menorah. And then there's other locations where there's shops and the owners are Christians. So there's indications of those that of the Christian belief side by side. Are they getting are they getting along better by the 3rd, 4th century? Is there any
Well, you're
indication?
describing the situation of that we have in Sardis exactly. So on the north side of the synagogue, we have about 29 shops. And some of the shops have Christian symbols in, some have Jewish symbols in, and some have pagan symbols in. So, maybe on the official, empire-wide level, there's, edicts against the Jews, but on a local level, it seems that people were getting along. We're able to negotiate the various religious differences amongst themselves.
I guess much the same as what we have in Jerusalem today with all the different faiths and shops
Yeah.
getting along, and they just want to make sure they can put food on the table and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, run their business and
There you go.
barter with one another. And
For sure. Yeah.
things haven't
David
changed.
just stole my thunder on that one. David, thank you.
Oh, I often do that, George, with us. Yeah.
That to me. That's the way it goes. But anyway,
Well, Mark, it's really great to have you on and catch up on
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
all the things happening. So
Appreciate the good work you guys are doing too to highlight archaeology and its importance for material culture and understanding the Bibles.
thank you for your time. We have to have you. I had a lot of fun listening to you and putting some of the events that occurred in the epistles and making it more rational. How, like you're there and you can see it, and where Paul was interacting with the community. So you just said like the silversmiths, and one thing led to another. Who would have saw that one coming? What do you say about idols? Well, they're not good. Well, how did that affect the economy? But that's so interesting and fascinating. Yeah, and
Yeah.
thank you for your time and joining us on this
Yeah,
podcast.
enjoy getting
I appreciate
acquainted
it.
with you, and yeah, God bless your work, guys.
Thank you for your time. Once again, this is Biblical Archaeology from the ground down. Remember to like, subscribe, ring that bell. We are starting a Patreon program. David's going to add more information, how you can contact Dr. Wilson, and also take a trip. Maybe me and David will join you. We'll get out there. David, get out of Canada, buddy. You can do it.
coming to you from the US, Canada, and Turkey today. So the marvels of technology.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you for your time. And everybody, you have a great day.